Jim, so you're so good at lists, I'm going to be the producer again. I want to know what your rag list is.
You have to talk to the key grip. Rag is diffusion. I like to keep it as limited as possible so there aren't too many choices, because there must be 50 different kinds of diffusion material, and if you carry them all, you'll never decide what to use. So I usually carry opal, quarter grid, light grid, full grid, and muslin. Solamente.
Bleached or unbleached?
Bleached. If I want to add color to it, I can add color to the light rather than have it inherent in the material. And then colored gels, you have the blues and the oranges. I like CTO as opposed to CTS, but it's subjective. And then you have fluorescent gels that you can either plus green or minus green, and have those things available. We like to use large frames of maybe bleached muslin and light grid to have large sources. And you maybe put, you have a 12 by 12 muslin, you might put a big 18K behind it, or you might put two 12 light Dinos behind it, so that you get a large source that's quite soft and you can get it far away.
Another good one to always think about with diffusion and materials that you carry with you is very much that, you know, it doesn't always have to be a piece of diffusion that's on a frame, you know. And especially if you're working at speed, I always think just having diffusion, we call them T-bars, but you can just have a wooden batten with some silk or grid cloth, whichever the diffusion material you like. You can just hang this on that very quickly and put it in. So that's something that we carry. And also in our barrow we have just bits of cloth that we put, you know, over, say, on a bounce source. We might not want a poly sort of light bounce because it's very reflective, so we'll put cloth over that to soften it. So I think these are all the other things that you have with you that you carry as bits of diffusion and sort of bits
just
of coloured
bits
cloth.
of coloured cloth or
Yes, they can be. Yes, so if you do like to use coloured cloth for creating a bounce, or you feel that something looks too white, or you know you want to sort of bring it down, you can use coloured cloth to do that. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a film we did called Hannah, with a DP called Alvin Kushler, and actually there was a scene in this Grimm's fairy house world, and actually we lit that through a very heavy pink fabric, and we discovered it on the location. And it wasn't something actually that we prepared, but we went there, and when we were pre-lighting it, we discovered this cloth, and it gave it a very unusual quality to the light.
Michel, I thought you had a really interesting thing that you mentioned that Benoit Delhomme does.
He's a French DOP working a lot in England, I think, in England and in the States. He's doing bounce with black stuff for face. And when I asked him why he's doing that, he's told me that the digital is so sensitive. Then he discovered, then sometimes it's enough.
Bouncing on black, guys.
Hi, my name's Ashley. I'm an Australian DP in LA. And just talking about the rag and diffusion point, do you have a rule of thumb as to how to choose your diffusion? And what are, I mean, I know, Jim, you mentioned a few, but what are your go-to diffusions and why?
It's good to know that which diffusion material is going to cut how many steps of light. So I would start with that actually, and then ask for that particular thing which maybe only cuts down one step. Or if I need more, then I will use a heavier one.
And do you have any favorite material that you like to use? Or?
I think the same thing what Jim likes, I like.
It really depends on how soft you want the light to be. If you want it really soft, you use a heavier diffusion and a bigger light. But if you want more direction from the light, then you use a lighter diffusion, and you don't need as big a light.
But as Reuben was saying about shooting Hannah, and he came across this material, it is part of my thought process that I log that in my notes that I use further down the line. And we'll be shooting a film, and Reuben will turn to me and say, you know that film we did the other day, and we had this material. Where do we get that from? It's that log of sourcing that material, because that's going to work fantastic here, you know, and that's part of the process.
I think one thing to add to what Jim was saying earlier, it's you can get very bogged down with a whole range of materials. And there's grid cloths, there's silk, you know, but you have to understand these are all means to an end. You know, you can get very technical about what these things do, but, you know, it's very important, I think, to be simple. And it's, you know, you have to decide whether you're just going to take the edge off a beam of light. So you might use a half soft frost, which I think is a great diffusion material. You know, through to whether you're trying to create a complete sort of wraparound source, and at that point you would be using a heavier diffusion like a full silk or a full grid, you know. So, you know, it really is dependent on what you're trying to achieve, you know.